My name is Chet Zaborowski. I was a Sergeant E5 in the United States Army Special Forces. My very last mission came up kind of unannounced. I was about 1 month away from actually finishing my entire tour, and was already getting, no, I'm sorry, about 3 weeks away from getting, my final tour in. And my company commander came up to me after a mission. We had made contact with the enemy, came through, we were doing our debriefing, and the company commander, Colonel McGowan, came over to me, tapped me on the shoulder, and he said, "Hey, Ski, you're going home?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I know I'm a couple of weeks away." He says, "No, you are going home." Now, I don't remember the exact days, but let's say if it was a Wednesday, I had just come through and I was getting this debriefing. My company commander told me I had to be in Cameron Bay by Saturday, that I was actually leaving. So I went from the field to my debriefing to getting all my stuff ready, and I was in Cameron Bay, which was another long flight for me, and then getting out of the service that quick. My last mission basically was a recon mission that we made contact with the enemy. We were searching around a place called Rocket Mountain, looking for the enemy that would set up rockets and fire them on our compound. We actually found him, engaged him, shot him, and killed him. So it was a successful mission for us. I was glad to get out of there. As a matter of fact, if you go through the history books, and I got out in 1971, in April of 1971, and if you look in the history books in Khartoum, in 1972, there was this thing called the Easter Offensive. It was a massive attack by the North Vietnamese, specifically to divide the country of South Vietnam into two. And where were they going to divide it? In the Central Highlands, where I was located. So the camp that I was in Khartoum, no longer exists. That was overrun and totally wiped out by this Easter Offensive of 1972. If I stayed in the service for one extra tour, I would have been right in the middle of that Easter Offensive. So when I had my chance to get out, it was like, okay, I did my duty, I had my tour of Vietnam, I'm getting out. While the getting is still good. I did have an awful lot of problems when I came home, though, because a Vietnam veteran coming home wasn't welcomed. Anybody in uniform in the 1960s and 1970s was thought to be a baby killer, a warmonger, a communist, and those kinds of things just hung with all of the veterans that were coming back from Vietnam. By contrast of today's soldiers coming back from the Middle East, where they're welcomed with open arms and parades and accolades, and schools are bringing them in to give presentations, none of that happened when I came back from Vietnam. I actually had people, look at me and stare at me and call me a baby killer. And that has to go back to the My Lai disaster with Lieutenant Calley. And that's something that happened, that I wasn't a part of, but every single soldier of the Vietnam era lives under that cloud of that My Lai massacre. To call me a warmonger, well, I'm only doing what my government asked me to do, to serve their country and to serve honorably. So these are kind of things that hit me really, really hard when I first came home. I did have to have some psychological, I guess this would be aggression training or something or other, because I drank an awful lot, and I drank to the point where I physically wanted to get drunk and I wanted to fight. I was having an awful lot of fights. And one in particular that occurred in Ben Salem, I won't go through all the details, but there were two people that were fighting and trying to throw out into traffic in the middle of Street Road. And a police officer came around, stopped, lights went on, and I figured, uh-oh, I'm in real trouble. Because I'm drunk, I'm fighting, I'm out of control, anybody could see that. The police officer came over, asked for our license, and that's at the time we didn't have a photo ID or anything. So I just gave him my license. He looked at me, went into his car, came back. He gave me the card back. He said, "You get out of here." I'm like, whew, I got out somehow. He took the other two guys, and I don't even know what he did, but I went back. I actually went to another party then. But I had a real hard time, with that. I guess it was about 2 o'clock in the morning when I got home, and my dad was sitting there at the table. He says, "I got a call from the Ben Salem Police Department. Officer Wisniewski wants to see us tomorrow." That was the arresting officer on the Wisniewski woman. I graduated school with him. And we went over, we saw him the next day. He described what he saw, what happened. He, said, "You were definitely out of control. You need some help." And of course, I was in real self-denial. I don't need any help. I could take care of myself. He says, "No, you can't. Because what you think you might be able to do, somebody might come over with a gun and just, and then it's over." So I actually was told that I had to seek psychological help. Saw a guy by the name of Jerry Thompson for several months, and we went through, it was probably aggressive training. There were other veterans that were there, other people that had gone through traumatic experiences. They told their story, and that was one of the things I think that really helped me out, is that I could open up to other people in the same room with me, tell them my stories, tell them the things that I had in my mind, the things that I had to get off of my chest, of all my experiences that I had in Vietnam, and they listened. And that was a good thing for me. So whenever I do these presentations, and I've been doing them now since 1977, I keep on telling my wife, the presentations are a part of my therapy, my ongoing therapy. So this is really good for me to get all this stuff out. Because if I had to hold it in again, I don't know if surprise would be the thing. I never went over there, never volunteered for Vietnam thinking that I'm going to die over there. I volunteered thinking, you know what, I have all of this training, over a year and a half of training. I want to put it to good use, especially my medical training. I know how to save lives. I want to be able to save lives. I want to be able to do it in a combat situation. And I want people to respect me for that. So that's kind of like how I went over to Vietnam. And even when I was in the service, from day one, I always wanted to be the best soldier that I could possibly be. I never got into trouble. I always listened to my drill instructors. I always volunteered to do something that somebody needed, because I wanted to prove myself in training so that I could do that stuff in real life when I went into combat in Vietnam. Made me a little more mature. Now, when I went into the service, I was 21 and a half years old, which was kind of old because at that time, 18-year-olds were going into the service. I was a little more older, maybe a little more mature, or maybe less mature, I don't know, but people looked up to me because I was older. Even when I went overseas, I was in Vietnam when I was 23. I turned 24 when I was over in Vietnam, and people looked up to me as the elder. "Oh, you're 24, you ought to know what's going on." Well, age didn't make a whole lot of difference there. Experience did, okay? But it was kind of neat to be, like the old guy at 24. I realize that people have fought for my freedoms decades and centuries ago to give me what I have. And I was really proud to be in the United States Army, really proud to be in the Special Forces, and I feel that I did my duty, carried on the wishes of my team leaders, performed our missions, did well, came out alive, which was good. And I would do it again. If somebody asked me today to go over to Iraq or go over to Afghanistan, that I had a specific job or mission to do, which in my case might be to save lives, to help people in the medical field, I would do it. Now I realize I'm almost 66, they're not going to ask me, so I'm probably safe there. But yes, I would do it again in a heartbeat. I love the military. It taught me a lot of things. I matured an awful lot with the military, and I would definitely do it again without hesitation.